it put all the Mishnahs together, and then the Gemara tries to explain each part of the Mishnah. So we were dealing with the um, we're dealing with the different families that donated to the Beis Hamikdash in the time of the second temple era, which is somewhere around 350 before the Common Era, when Ezra took the people back to Eretz Yisrael, and Ezra and Nehemiah, they tried to get the people to come, and not everyone came. They got 40,000 people to come. Anyway, they didn't have wood for the Beis Hamikdash. There wasn't much infrastructure in Eretz Yisrael for Judaism. It was a very tough time, and the people who came back were Meiser Nefesh, so to speak. And in fact, even in Eretz Yisrael, it says a lot of the people were intermarried, and they had to. They ultimately divorced their Goyish wives, and returned. But so the story is that there was no wood, and there were certain families that donated, substantial amounts of wood to help for the Beis Hamikdash to be able to bring the karbonos. And I say the Mishnah is a little confusing because the Mishnah, even when it talks about these dates where they made these celebrations, but it sort of includes a number of families in one of the dates. It includes, for example, the case that we were talking about yesterday was the 15th day of the month of Menachem Av. So it says on the 15th day was Bnei Zatu ben Yehuda, and with them were Kainim Leviim, anyone that made a mistake in their shevet, they didn't know which family, and there was Bnei Goin ve'elu Bnei Koitzi Ktzios, and there were people who did this tremendous Mesiras Nefesh, gutsy act of deceiving the border police and bringing Bikurim. They would bring the Bikurim to the Beis Hamikdash. But what does that have to do with the celebration of the wood donations? In other words, yes, very nice. There was a family called Bnei Goin ve'eli, the deceivers, that they used the pestle to deceive the border police and be able to head towards the Beis Hamikdash, bring Bikurim, and somehow they are included here in this discussion of the holidays of bringing wood. But what did they do exactly with regard to the wood celebration? Why are they so they're celebrating on the 15th day of the month of for doing what? Because they brought Bikurim? I mean, this is not the celebration of Bikurim. So there's two ways of understanding this. One way is that the Gemara brings two stories. The Gemara brings a story of people who made ladders and they really wanted to donate wood to the Beis Hamikdash. However, there was a rule, some decree, and we said there's different opinions as to when this happened, but there was some decree by the government that they weren't allowed to bring wood to the Beis Hamikdash. So they brought ladders claiming that they're going, getting their pigeons or their, I don't know, something to do with getting their birds, and they need the ladder to get to the dovecote to get the birds, and therefore they need to get through in order to go to the I guess there's a bigger dovecote over there that they'll be able to get their birds. It's easier, it's better, there's going to be more birds there. So they needed to get through the border in order to get to the dovecote. So ultimately, they got through. Then they would take apart their ladder, and they would bring the wood to the Beis Hamikdash. So one way of understanding these two stories is really it's the same family. This was a family that knew that in order to do mitzvahs, you sometimes have to deceive the government because the government hates Yiddishkeit, and that's part of the way Hashem created the world, and we see it today in many ways. And so they didn't they weren't criminals, but they wanted to serve Hashem. So they had to find ways and avenues how to do mitzvahs, even though the government didn't allow it. And so so the same family that brought the Bikurim, they also brought the wood to the Beis Hamikdash through ladders, through bringing ladders. And so that's why it says they celebrated on this day. Why did they celebrate on this day? Because they would bring wood to the Beis Hamikdash as well. And so they were included in this family, Zatu ben Yehuda. That's one way of understanding it. The other way of understanding it is that they actually donated the pestle after they got through to the and brought their bikurim, but they still had the pestle with them. The pestle they donated, they brought a pestle that would be donatable. It was usable for wood for the Beis Hamikdash. So they all brought their pestles with them in order to be able to donate this wood to the Beis Hamikdash. So they were also participants of the wood donations for the Beis Hamikdash. It seems like the family of Zatu ben Yehuda, and I think I mentioned this in the Mishnah, that family must have been a smaller family. And so whenever there was any issues, they encouraged anyone else that was not sure, unclear. They joined that family because that family had a lot of, potential space for extra people to be there and rejoice with them because they were a small family. So it mentions that the anyone that was ta'ah b'shivta, anyone that made a mistake with their shevet, they would participate. They would go with that family, and then it says in the Bnei Gad ve'eli k'tziyos. So they all participated in this celebration. So that's basically the Gemara that we learned yesterday. Again, there were those two stories of how the government decreed against bringing bikurim, the first fruits, and against bringing wood. And ultimately, they found ways around it. They figured out a way to pull it off. The commentaries, one of the commentaries mentions, he says, can you hear me? Oh, Isaac, you've somehow pressed something on your computer.
Sorry, what did I do?
It's loading your whiteboard.
To switch to it. I didn't realize it would automatically switch to it. I'm sorry.
This is what's unique about Zoom and the internet now is that sometimes we find out secrets about other people. Luckily, there was nothing there, Isaac. So
I was looking to find, there's an old clip from Danny Kaye. I don't know if you know of Danny Kaye, but there was a comedy where he ran around with his chaverim there. That something with the something, but the vessel with the pestle holds the brew that is true. That is going through my mind. That's all.
Movie. It's a movie called The Court Jester.
Yeah, the vessel with the pestle.
So getting back to what we were talking about. So the commentaries discuss why was it that they made these decrees against bringing bikurim fruits and against bringing wood? And so one of the, in other words, they specifically decreed against these two things. So one of the commentaries explains, he says, the government didn't want to make it look outright that it's anti-Semitic. It wanted to make it look like they have logical reasons why they have to prohibit these things. And these things are easy to find excuses for. because they're claiming, oh, if you bring too much fruit to the Beis Hamikdash, you're going to cause the prices to go up. You're going to bring wood, you're going to cause the prices to go up. So these are problematic, and we have to stop this for simply for society and for the ability for the economy and for the poor people here and so on. And so therefore we have to prohibit your religious activity. So in other words, this was an easy way for them to pretend as if they don't just hate the Jewish people or hate the Jewish religion, but they're doing it for, so to speak, some ethical reason that they came up with. So that would be one of the reasons why they made those decrees. So that's basically the Gemara. Let me just look. Did we have one other piece that we did yesterday?
Yes. About the Ben Suriya.
So yeah, the next piece, right? Okay, all the names. That was the next piece. So the next piece of Gemara talked about all these names and the different families. There were 8 families that brought wood on 9 different times. One of the families doubled up. In other words, doubled. I don't mean doubled up. One of the families brought twice. And so ultimately it was 8 families, but they brought wood at 9 different occasions when wood was needed, and ultimately they would celebrate every year on the yard site, so to speak, on the anniversary of their bringing the wood. Now, so the Gemara tells us that some of these names, which we're not so maybe familiar with, are really someone that is popular, like it's Yoav or David, and so Reb Meir seems to hold. He says, when it says Bnei Pachas Moav ben Yehuda, so Reb Meir says that's actually David HaMelech. The only problem is that in our Mishnah, there's a date that's called the family of David HaMelech brought wood, and that's a different date than the date of Pachas Moav ben Yehuda. The date of Pachas Moav ben Yehuda, again, if you look in the Mishnah, so you have all the dates there, and that was on page 26a, and there was a date for David. Bnei David ben Yehuda was the 20th of Tammuz, and Bnei Pachas Moav ben Yehuda, that date was on the 20th of Av. So there's the 20th of Tammuz is David HaMelech. The 20th of Av is the date of Pachas Moav ben Yehuda. So according to Reb Meir, there were not 8 families that brought wood. There were 7 families that brought wood. If Reb Meir follows our Mishnah and he just makes that one change, it ends up that there's really only 7 families. And what it should say when it talks about David, or Bnei Pachas Moav ben Yehuda, who's the same as David, it should say they returned and brought wood a second time, according to Reb Meir, right? That's what. So obviously our Mishnah is not following Reb Meir, because in our Mishnah it makes it pretty clear that it's 8 families that are bringing wood, and when the one family brought wood a second time, it uses the word shavu. Shavu b'nei parash shniya, they came back and brought a second time, but it doesn't say that about David HaMelech, that they came back a second time. So obviously our Mishnah is a different opinion than Reb Meir. Reb Meir's opinion was that David HaMelech's family brought wood a second time. They brought wood on the 20th of Tammuz. That's Bnei David ben Yehuda, is referring to David HaMelech's family, obviously grandchildren or whatever, great-great-great-grandchildren. They would bring wood on the 20th of Tammuz, and they also brought wood on the 20th of the month of Av, And the Mishnah happens to use a different name, Pachas Mayav ben Yehuda, which fits with David HaMelech, because it could be more like an adjective to David HaMelech. Pachas could mean a governor, and Mayav refers to the fact that he originates from the country of Mayav, because David HaMelech's grandmother was Rus, and ultimately great grandmother. So therefore, he's called Pachas Mayav, the governor that comes from Mayav, and he's from the descendant of the tribe of Yehuda, and he brought wood on the 20th of Av. So according to Reb Meir, it should say that he returned and brought wood a second time, that family. It doesn't. So therefore, our Mishnah obviously doesn't follow Reb Meir, but that's the view of Reb Meir. And then the Gemara said that Rabbi Yossi says that day of Bnei Pachas Mayav ben Yehuda, which was the 20th of Av, it was not David HaMelech, but that was really Yoav ben Tzruya's family, which also, I guess, fits with the term Pachas Mayav ben Yehuda, because what Rashi tells us, because Yoav comes from Moab, because they're from the same family, Yoav and David HaMelech. Yoav was the nephew, so his great-great-grandmother, whatever, was also Rus HaMayaviyah, and he doesn't explain the word Pachas, but seemingly the Pachas here as well. Well, it could be that Pachas, being like a governor or someone in charge, could actually refer to Rus, because she was the daughter of the king of Moab. So theoretically, you could translate it to mean not going on David or Yoav, but actually going on Rus as well. That Pachas Moav means they come from the leaders of Moab. So theoretically, I mean, Rashi doesn't really clarify the word Pachas. But there is a term that you're not allowed to give, you're not allowed to use some low-grade items for Hashem. So in other words, like wine, you wouldn't use for Kiddush, you can't use some old wine that's spoiling. Why not? Why can't you use wine that's spoiled or whatever? Well, first of all, it has to be called wine, but it's also, there's a pasuk that says, Hakrivehu na lepechasecha. Would you bring such a thing to your governor? You're giving a gift. Would you bring? So pechasecha could mean a governor or important, dignified person. So Pachas is basically this important individual who could. So the term could mean David HaMelech, and Moav would be David HaMelech's great grandmother, who's Rus from Moav, or maybe it could be, he comes from the Pachas Moav. Maybe it means from the royalty of Moav. Could possibly mean that. I didn't see that in the commentaries, but maybe that's where Yoav would fit in, because Yoav also comes from the royalty of Moav. Or you could say maybe with Yoav is the same thing. Yoav was a commander in the army. So maybe that allows him to be considered being a commander, the major. He was the right-hand man of David HaMelech. I guess he could also be called a Pachas, like a governor, important leader that you would not, that a person would need to respect, and called a Pachas, such a dignified individual. So so I guess it could refer to, definitely some commentaries say when it talks about David, that they say it's called, David was called the Pachas of, and it comes from Moab, but he's the Pachas, he's the this dignified leader, the king of and called the Pachas. But Yoav, I guess you could say the same thing, that Yoav is also called this Pachas, this commander. Okay, so anyway, Rabbi Yossi wants to say that it's not David HaMelech's family, Pachas Moav, but it's it's really Yoav ben Tzruya's family. That's Rabbi Yossi's opinion, that the 20th of Av was really Yoav ben Tzruya. Okay, fine. So we got these two views, that we got Yoav ben Tzruya, we got it's David HaMelech. Our Mishnah can't go like Reb Meir, because then it would have to say Shavu, they returned the second time. But Yoav ben Tzruya, maybe at this point it could follow Reb Yossi, because okay, you want to call him Yoav, you call him Bnei Pachas Moav, whatever you want to call him, it's interchangeable, no problem. However, the next part is a problem, because the Gemara brings a brisa, The Brisa talks about the other name called Odin ben Yehuda, and that's the 20th of Elul. So it is a little confusing. We've got the 20th of Tammuz, who's David, the 20th of Av, who's either David or Yoav, and we've got the 20th of Elul, who is called the family of Odin ben Yehuda. So the Brisa then tells us, you know who Odin ben Yehuda is? So Reb Yehuda says that's David HaMelech. So we've got Reb Meir says the 20th of Tammuz and the 20th of is David HaMelech. We have Reb Yehuda who says it's the 20th of Tammuz and the 20th of Elul who's David HaMelech. And according to that, our Mishnah can't go like Reb Yehuda because Reb Yehuda, it doesn't, the Mishnah doesn't say that David HaMelech came twice. And now we've got another problem, and that is Rabbi Yossi says the 20th of Elul is Yoav ben Tzruya, which sounds like Yoav came twice because he came in the 20th of Av and the 20th of Elul. So Reb Meir has David HaMelech coming twice. Reb Yehuda has David HaMelech coming twice, different dates, but they have them coming twice. And Reb Yossi has Yoav ben Tzruya coming twice. And again, the Mishnah, none of these cases says they returned a second time, which means that the author of our Mishnah must be a fourth opinion, but we don't know of any fourth opinion because we don't have any brisa that shows a fourth opinion. So who would be the author of our Mishnah? So the Gemara says that really the author of our Mishnah could be Rabbi Yossi. How could it be Rabbi Yossi? The author of our Mishnah could be Rabbi Yossi because Rabbi Yossi doesn't really say that Yoav came twice. There's two opinions as to what Rabbi Yossi said. We don't know what Rabbi Yossi said. One of them says he said this. One of them he says that. They're not so far off, but we're not sure what he said. We only said one of them, which means that Rabbi Yossi says that Yoav ben Tzruya's family came to bring wood for the Beis Hamikdash. That's a definite. Rabbi Yossi says one of these families here is Yoav ben Tzruya. That family definitely brought wood for the Beis Hamikdash. When exactly it was either the 20th of Av or the 20th of Elul. But definitely one of those they brought. One opinion, one of the students, I guess, of Rabbi Yossi says, Rabbi Yossi said the 20th of Av. The other student of Rabbi Yossi, or a follower of Rabbi Yossi, said it was the 20th of Elul. But Yoav and Tzruya came once, not twice. So that could fit with our Mishnah. If Yoav ben Tzruya, if both opinions are Rabbi Yossi, in other words, Rabbi Yossi says Yoav ben Tzruya came twice, then the Mishnah can't fit like any of these rabbis because they all hold that one of the families came a second time and it doesn't fit with the text. The text says they only came once. And however, if you learn that Rabbi Yossi only says they came once, the family of Yoav ben Tzruya, but it's just unclear which date did the family of Yoav ben Tzruya come. In other words, do we say that Yoav ben Tzruya is called Odin, or is the family of Yoav ben Tzruya called Pachas Moab? But one of those families refers to Yoav ben Tzruya, but they didn't come twice. We just don't know which one it's referring to. It's another name that that they had. Or like one of them is more of an adjective, one of them is the name. And Pachas Moab is more of an adjective or a pronoun or whatever. It's referring to this family, or Odin ben Yehuda. Odin, has certain qualities called Odin Adinai Ha'etzni. Somewhere in Shmuel Base, we did study about it, but it's unclear. I guess the Gemara has I think there's a Gemara somewhere in Moed Katan about who exactly is this Adinai Ha'etzni. So could refer to Yoav. So basically, that's the Gemara that our Mishnah can fit with Rabbi Yossi, and Rabbi Yossi follows. Rabbi Yossi's view is it's not clear which date is Yoav ben Tzruya, but one of the dates is Yoav ben Tzruya, and he has two names. The Mishnah just picks one of the names of Yoav ben Tzruya, but really, the well-known name is Yoav ben Tzruya. The unwell-known name is either this Adin ben Yehuda or Chasmayav ben Yehuda. Okay, so let's just read that inside, because I think it's going to be clear now why we sort of rushed through it yesterday. So I'm just going to read that last paragraph over. We're on page 28a, and I'm going to start from Mani Masnisen, from that line. It's 4 lines up from the bottom of the page. And if you have the art scroll, it's 28a3, and it's Be'echad B'Teves Shavu B'nei. It says on the first day of Teves, the Mishnah said, B'nei Parush, the family of Parush, came back a second time to bring wood, a wood donation, which sounds like they were the only family who came back a second time to bring a wood donation. All the other families brought wood once, and they brought wood twice. And now the Mishnah is the Gemara wants to figure out, so who is this Mishnah going like? Because Reb Meir says it's a different family came twice. And Reb Yehuda says a different family came twice. And Reb Yaisi says a different family came twice. And our Mishnah does not mention about any other families coming twice except Parush ben Yehuda. So the Gemara says, Mani Masnisen, who does our Mishnah go like? Whose view of the Tanoim does our Mishnah go like? Because it doesn't seem to fit any of the rabbis that we know of who have voiced their opinions. Like Reb Meir, like Reb Yehuda, like Reb Yaisi. Doesn't fit like Reb Meir, doesn't fit like Reb Yehuda, and it doesn't fit like Reb Yaisi. Reb Meir, if it would go like Reb Meir, then the wording should be as follows. Listni, let it state, Shavu b'nei David ben Yehuda Shniya, that the family of David returned the second time and brought wood twice. Because according to Reb Meir, they brought wood on the 20th of Teves, and they brought wood on the 20th of the month of Av. So it should say that David came a second time and returned and brought wood a second time. Reb Yehuda, if it's Reb Yehuda, listening, it should state, Shavu b'nei David ben Yehuda Shniya, that the family of David HaMelech brought wood twice, because according to Reb Yehuda, they brought wood on the 20th of Av, and they brought wood on the 20th of Elul. And so they returned twice, and the Mishnah doesn't mention it. And so the understanding is our Mishnah doesn't follow Reb Yehuda, because if it was Reb Yehuda, it should state that the family of David HaMelech brought wood twice. They returned and brought wood a second time. Reb Yaisi, and the Mishnah can't fit like Rabbi Yaisi, because if it would be Rabbi Yaisi, it should state that Lisnei Shavu b'nei Yoav ben Tzruya Shniya, that the family of Yoav, who was the commander of David HaMelech's army, we learned a lot about him in the book of Shmuel Beis and Malachim Aleph in the beginning. And so the in Shmuel Aleph, did someone want to say something? Moshe, did you, or Mordechai? Okay. So if it was Rabbi Yaisi, so it should state that Yoav came twice. Why would it state Yoav came twice? Because according to Rabbi Yaisi, the understanding is that Yoav was the family of Adin, and he was the family of the and he was also the family of Chasmoya. So you have the 20th of and the 20th of Elul. According to Rabbi Yaisi, Yoav came twice, and it doesn't say that. It should state Shavu b'nei Yoav ben Tzruya Shniya, that Yoav, the family of Yoav, returned and brought wood a second time. So who does our Mishnah go like? The Gemara answers Li'olam Rabbi Yaisi. Really, our Mishnah goes like Rabbi Yaisi. Trei Tanoi, I'll leave it to Rabbi Yaisi, and there's two opinions as to what Rabbi Yaisi said. Not that Rabbi Yaisi held they came twice. Rabbi Yaisi held they only came once. The only thing is, we don't know exactly which once they came. Was it this date or was it a different date? So therefore, the Mishnah can fit like Rabbi Yossi, and it's just a little unclear which opinion actually Rabbi Yossi held by. Was Yoav ben Tzeruya. We don't know exactly which family was Yoav ben Tzeruya, but there is one opinion that it was this family, one opinion was the other family. So it's either Bnei Pachas Mayav ben Yehuda, or it's the family of the Odin ben Yehuda. Okay, so that's the end. We figured out who the author of our Mishnah is. It is Rabbi Yossi. It can't be Rameir, it can't be Rabbi Yehuda, because the Mishnah does not state any other family came twice. Only Bnei Parush came twice, but it doesn't state any other family. According to these two opinions, Rameir, Rabbi Yehuda, it should say either David came, it should say that David HaMelech came twice, and it doesn't. So, but it fits with Rabbi Yossi, because Rabbi Yossi doesn't really say any family came twice, except Parush ben Yehuda. But Yoav did not come twice. According to Rabbi Yossi, he only came once. It's just unclear which date was the date that Rabbi Yossi held Yoav's family brought the wood. Okay, now comes the next Gemara. We're on the bottom line, page 28a. Bottom line, on the first day of Teves, they did not have any maimed at all. Why did they have a maimed? Well, the first day of Teves is a holiday. What holiday is the first day of Teves?
Hanukkah.
Hanukkah. It's Rosh Chodesh and it's Hanukkah. But Hanukkah is more over. Hanukkah is the reason for the full Hallel, and Rosh Chodesh is the reason for
Musaf.
Musaf. So we got Musaf, we've got Hanukkah, and there was also something else on the first day of Teves, and that was that there was a wood offering on which family brought on the first day of Teves. Harush brought the second time on the first day of Teves. So they had 3 holidays on the first day of Teves: Hallel, Musaf, and the wood offering. That was the family of Parush who brought a second time. They brought wood on the first day of Teves. So we got 3 holidays. So the Mishnah said, because of those 3 holidays, we do not do any ma'amodis. They didn't do all these extra prayers. Why? They were pretty busy. They got to do the celebration. They got to do the they got to do Hallel. They got to do Musa. So they basically canceled the Ma'amadis. Ma'amadis were very important, but there was no time. So they canceled the Ma'amadis. So the Gemara says, Amar le Mar Kashisha, Bereid Rav Chizda, Mar Kashisha, the son of Rav Chizda, said to Rav Ashi. It's interesting because they say that Rav Chizda had 2 sons. One of them was, they're both with the same name, which is definitely an interesting thing. He named 2 of his sons the same name, and one of them was older. The other one was younger. Obviously, they weren't, or maybe they were twins. I don't know, but still, one was older, one was younger, and they called the older one because they had the same name. How did you know which one was which one it was? Because they had the same name. So one of them they would call Mar Kashisha, the older one. The other one would be called Mar Yanuka, the younger one. So Rav Chizda, so that's this is Mar Kashisha. This is the older one of Rav Chizda's 2 sons with the same name. He was called Mar Kashisha, the son of Rav Chizda, and he told Rav Ashi. And now we turn the page. We're on 28b. Maishna Hallel didachi didei, u'maishna Musaf delay dachi didei. Why is Hallel different than Musaf? He says Hallel knocks off the Maimed of Shachris. And everyone seemed to agree with that. That if you have to say Hallel, you got to skip the Shachris Maimed. You skip it. There's no Maimed at Shachris, the extra prayers that they would add. No Maimed. It's Hallel. You got to do Hallel. They would cancel the Maimed of Shachris. Hallel knocks off its Maimed. Maimed Didei. Dachi Didei. It cancels its own Maimed because Hallel and Shachris go together. So if you do Hallel, you cancel its own Maimed, the Maimed of Shachris. She says, why is that different? Why is Musaf not going to cancel the Musaf Ma'amadis? What does this mean? The Mishnah said that a day that has Musaf, it cancels the Mincha Ma'amadis. But what about the Musaf Ma'amadis? It sounds like you maybe say the Musaf Ma'amadis, but you're doing Musaf, you cancel the Mincha Ma'amadis. Sounds a little surprising. Hallel, we don't say cancel the stuff later on in the day because I'm too busy, so we'll cancel some other prayer later. We don't do that. We say cancel this prayer because I got to do Hallel in this prayer, and therefore I'm canceling the Ma'amadis of this prayer. Musaf, what do we say? I'm canceling the Ma'amadis of the next prayer because I got to do Musaf now. So I'll do Musaf, I'll do Ma'amadis in this prayer, and I'm going to cancel some extra prayers that are going to be later on in the day. That doesn't make sense. Why? If Hallel cancels this prayer's Ma'amadis, Musaf should cancel this prayer's Ma'amadis, not Mincha's prayer's Ma'amadis. So why is Musaf not? Why is it not canceling its own Ma'amadis? This is Mar Kashisha Berei Rav Chizda's question to Rav Ashi. So Amar Le Rav Ashi. So Rav Ashi answered him and said, Hashta delav didei dachi. Now that it's not going to cancel, I'm sorry, Hashta delav didei dachi. Now that it will cancel not its own Ma'amadis, but it cancels a different Ma'amadis. It cancels Mincha. Now Musaf is going to cancel even it's canceling not its own Ma'amad. It's canceling Mincha's prayers. Delav di Dedachi. It cancels its not its own prayer. It's not its own Ma'amad. This is canceling Mincha's Ma'amadis. The day like Holstein, isn't it for sure going to cancel its own Ma'amadis? Let me say that in other words. If Rav Ashi says back to him, he says, do you really think that Musaf, because you're davening Musaf, do you really think it's not going to cancel the extra prayers called Ma'amad? They said, Musaf, if it's canceling the Mincha extra prayers, for sure Musaf is going to cancel its own extra prayers. So what exactly is he answering? He's saying that you learned the Mishnah wrong. You learned the Mishnah, Mar Kashisha, dear Mar Kashisha, you learned the Mishnah wrong. You thought that it says that when the day that has Musaf, it cancels the extra prayers at Mincha. You thought it means you say the extra prayers at Musaf, but you cancel later on in the day. You're going to do Mincha, cancel those extra prayers. That's not the way to. That's not the meaning of the Mishnah. The meaning of the Mishnah is it's even going to cancel the Mincha extra prayers, and for sure it's going to cancel its own Ma'amadis. For sure it's going to cancel its own prayers. Let me read it inside one more time. So Amalei Rav Ashi says to him back in a more of a rhetorical or a like a question type of answer. He says, Hashta delavdi deidachi. Now it's going to cancel even not its own extra prayers. The day like Holstein isn't going to for sure cancel its own its own extra prayers. For sure, it'll cancel Musaf. So it's even canceling Mincha. So now the way to read the Mishnah is you have to add the word even. A day that has Musaf, it even cancels Mincha for extra prayers. Does it cancel Musaf prayers? Of course. Does it cancel Mincha prayers? Yes, it even cancels Mincha extra prayers. You say Mincha, but you don't do the extra stuff. The Ma'amadis, you don't do it Mincha. Why? Because it's Musaf. Musaf, when you have a day that has Hallel, it cancels the Shachris extra prayer, morning. When you have a day that has Musaf, it cancels even the mincha prayers, and for sure it cancels the musaf extra prayers. It cancels both extra prayers, musaf prayers, and even mincha extra prayers. It's going to cancel. So Mar Kashisha says, no, you didn't understand my question. Amar lei hachi kamin. This is what I meant to say to you. Rav Ashi, you didn't understand what I was saying. Loi lidchi elodide. Let it only cancel its own extra prayer. Why is it canceling something else in the day? You're busy with musaf because you got to bring the carbon musaf. No problem. Don't do ma'amadas. Don't say these extra prayers of musaf. It cancels its own prayers because it's you're busy. No problem. Don't do the ma'amadas of musaf. Why are you also canceling the mincha extra prayers? Hallel cancels the chakras extra prayers. No problem. Okay. So we'll cancel the extra prayers of chakras. Musaf, don't do extra prayers because you got to do the musaf. But why should Hallel only cancel chakras extra prayers? It doesn't cancel mincha. So why should musaf cancel not only its own extra prayers, it has to cancel another extra prayers, mincha? So that's what his question really was. So Mark Shisha's question is, why should musaf cancel two? It cancels two ma'amadas, cancels musaf and mincha. Hallel didn't do that. You have to say Hallel cancels one extra prayer. So Amar Lei, so he said to him, Rav Ashi told back, Ika Rabbi Yossi de Koi Kavasov. You got a good point. And guess what? There is a rabbi that follows your logic. His name is Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi holds you with what you're saying is there is an opinion such as such. And that's Rabbi Yossi. Titania, because we learned in a brayso. Rabbi Yossi says, Kol yom sheyesh by musaf, yesh by maimed. Rabbi Yossi says in a brayso, and the understanding of this Gemara is that Rabbi Yossi's brayso, this brayso that says Rabbi Yossi really is a statement that included Rabbi Akiva's initial opinion in the beginning of this brayso, and Rabbi Yossi argues on Rabbi Akiva, and he says any day that has musaf, kol yom sheyesh by musaf, yesh by maimed. Rabbi Akiva was very lenient in ma'amados, you cancel everything, and Rabbi Yossi comes and argues and says no, a day that has a musaf, you still do maimed. That was Rabbi Yossi's view. Again, he was arguing on the Tanna Kama, the first opinion, seemingly was the view of Rabbi Akiva. And Rabbi Akiva held that once you do a day that has musaf, you cancel all the ma'amados. Rabbi Yossi says, no, you don't cancel all the ma'amados. It has a maimed. Day that has musaf has maimed. But he doesn't clarify what he refers to, so he leaves it a little vague. So the Gemara has to figure out what does Rabbi Yossi mean. So it says, Maima demai. Now, what is he referring to? A day that has musaf has a maimed. Which maimed does it have? If you're busy with musaf, which maimed does it have? So, ilema maimed de shachris. If you want to say maimed de shachris, then maybe a day that has musaf, you do a maimed de shachris. Now, that can't be. But Tanna Kama nami hachikam. The Tanna Kama also agrees that a day that has musaf, it for sure is canceling the maimed of Just 1 second. I'm trying to figure out Hallel. You have Musaf, seemingly you have Hallel. So what does this mean? But what it refers to would be Rosh Hashanah. That on Rosh Hashanah you don't have Hallel. So Rosh Hashanah you would have Musaf without Hallel. So a day that has this is what it means. A Maimon, what is Rabbi Yossi referring to? If you want to say that a day that you have Musaf, it does not cancel a Maimon of Shachris, it's not exactly something important to tell us. Because even the first view held the same thing, that on Rosh Hashanah, do you do my mothers of Shachris? Yeah, you'll do my mothers of Shachris. Why not? Why shouldn't you do the Ma'amodes of Shachris? You do the Ma'amodes of Shachris because there's no Hallel on Rosh Hashanah. So a day that has Musa, even the first opinion says you do Ma'amodes. We're not canceling Ma'amodes of Shachris. So if you want to say Ma'amodes of Shachris, the first opinion, which we're assuming is Rabbi Akiva, he also would hold that you do Ma'amodes of Shachris, because Musaf doesn't cancel Shachris Ma'amodes. Hallel would cancel it, but no Hallel. But basically, Musaf will cancel the later Ma'amodes, but Shachris is not canceled. So that would not be something that Rabbi Yossi would make a statement and tell us. You know what? I hold you have Ma'amodes. You're only going to say that if the first opinion says you don't do Ma'amodes. Rabbi Yossi's statement would make sense and say, I hold you do have Ma'amodes. But the first opinion also agrees that if there's no Hallel, then you say Ma'amodes at Shachris. Shachris is going to have Ma'amodes. No problem. So Rabbi Yossi is not going to tell us that. If Rabbi Yossi is telling us, oh, there you have Musaf, you're going to also have Ma'amodes, he must be telling us something unique that the first opinion held you don't have. So the Gemara says, Ela Maimed de Musaf. Rather, you must say that Rabbi Yossi must be saying, oh, you hold when you have Musaf, you don't have Ma'amodes. I hold you do have Ma'amodes. Ma'amodes of Musaf. So the Gemara says that doesn't make sense. Didei nami loidachi. It's Musaf is not going to even cancel its own Ma'amodes. That's the first opinion said it cancels Musaf, it cancels Mincha, it cancels Ne'ilah. The first opinion said it cancels everything. If you have to say Musaf, you cancel all the other Ma'amodes. That's the first opinion. What's Rabbi Yossi going to say? Is he going to take such an extreme view? Oh, it doesn't even cancel its own? That's very hard to assume, because for sure it should cancel its own. Didei nami loidachi. It's not going to cancel its own. It has to cancel its own. You're busy with Musaf. So it's for sure going to cancel its own. Rabbi Yossi is not saying it's going to have Ma'amodes of Musaf. You're saying Musaf. So you can't have the extra prayers. So therefore, Ela de Mincha must mean that it will, it must mean that it would cancel the Ma'amodes that the first opinion says it'll cancel Musaf, Mincha, and Ne'ilah. And Rabbi Yossi says, no, it's going to have a Ma'amodes at Mincha. So the Gemara says that Ela de Mincha, he must mean that it's going to cancel that when you have Musaf, it'll cancel the Maimed. The first opinion says it cancels Maimed and Mincha. I hold it doesn't cancel. You're going to do Ma'amodes at Mincha. So the Gemara says, no, it can't be that when you have Musaf, you do Ma'amodes at Mincha, because he says, Carbon Eitzim Dachu. The wood offering will suspend, it'll stop the Ma'amodes at Mincha. So there are going to be times that you have Musaf and you're not going to have Ma'amodes at Mincha. So what does he mean that there's a Maimed, even when you have Musaf, you have a Maimed? He must mean El Alav de Ne'ilah. What he must mean is that he holds no matter what day it is, when you bring a Musaf, you always have a Maimed at Ne'ilah. And what does this show? Shma Mina, this teaches us that the day dachi, that it cancels its own maimed, because Musaf cancels the Musaf Maimed. The Lav Didei Loidachi, but it's not going to cancel anything that's not its own. And Carbonatum will cancel the Mincha one, but it will cancel the only its own. Musaf will only cancel its own. Cancel the Musaf Hamadis. And that follows the same logic as you think, Mark Kashisha. Shmami not. So we see from here that there is such an opinion that when you have Musaf, you cancel the Ma'amodos of Musaf. That's Rabbi Yossi's opinion. It doesn't fit with our Mishnah. Our Mishnah holds if you have Musaf, you can cancel even Mincha. That's the way our Mishnah understood, because Musaf is too overwhelming and it will takes time. It will cancel the Ma'amodos and Mincha. But Rabbi Yossi holds this way, and that's basically the understanding of the view of at least the view of Rabbi Yossi, and the understanding of Mar Kashisha, the way it should be, is that it should only cancel its own maimed. We don't hold that way. We hold Musaf is too overwhelming. It needs you need to cancel the mincha as well. Now the Gemara continues, and the Gemara says that Rosh Chodesh Teves, you did not have Ma'amodos, and why was that? So Rosh Chodesh Teves, what did the Mishnah say? So the Mishnah said that on Rosh Chodesh Teves, you had 3 holidays. Lo yihaya by Maimed, didn't have a Maimed. Halel, Korban Musaf, Korban Eitzim. Now the Gemara is bothered with, what about the first day of Nisan? What do you think? Echad ben Nisan, that day, you would have Halel, you would have Musaf, and you would have Korban Eitzim, because the first day of Nisan was the Bnei Arach ben Yehuda. Bnei Arach ben Yehuda would bring wood on that day. So why does the Mishnah single out the first day of Teves and not the first day of Nisan? Let me mute everyone here. And that's what the Gemara is bothered with. Anyone have a thought? Well, if you learn the Gemara further, you'll know the answer. But if you didn't look forward further, you're welcome to share your thought. Okay. So what would the difference be, Rosh Chodesh Teves or Rosh Chodesh Nisan? So the Gemara tells us that there's a big difference. Let's learn it inside. The Lisni, if you don't know where the place is, we're on page 28b, and we must be about 15 lines from the top of the page. Maybe 12 lines from the top of the page. If you're in the art scroll, it's 28b1 in the last 2 paragraphs of the page, 28b1. The Lisni Nami Bechad Benisan Laihayu by my. Let it also, Mishnah should also teach that on the first day of Nisan there was no Ma'amodos. Why not? The Korban Musaf, the Korban Eitzim. You have the 3 things that cancel all the Ma'amodos, and that's it. Goodbye. No more Ma'amodos. You cancel Musaf, you cancel Shachris, you cancel Musaf, you cancel Mincha, and you cancel Ne'ilah. There's no Ma'amodos at all. So the thing is that the Gemara says, Amar Rava says, Zoyisay Meres. This teaches us Halela de Bereish Yarcha Lav de Araisa. The Halel of Rosh Chodesh is not biblical. That's what it teaches us. That Halel of Chanukah is considered close to being biblical, but the Halel of Rosh Chodesh is not. And therefore, that Halel is not going to cancel the Ma'amodos of Shachris. The Hallel of Hanukkah is called Nevi'im Takonas HaNevi'im. And that Hallel, it would actually cancel the Mamados of Shachris. But the Hallel of Rosh Chodesh isn't going to do that. It's not the Oraisa. It doesn't have a biblical origin. And the Amar Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Shimon ben Yitzchok. Rabbi Yochanan says in the name of Rabbi Shimon ben Yitzchok, Shmoina Asa Yom B'Shana Yachad Gavim As Hallel. There's 18 days we say the full Hallel, and Be'elohein, these are them. What are the 18 days we say the full Hallel? In other words, the difference between the full Hallel and the half Hallel is how important to the, or if you're even allowed to say Hallel on that day. If you say the whole Hallel, means this is the day that's appropriate to say Hallel, and you're allowed to, and you're obligated to. On other days of the year, you say the half Hallel on special occasions, but because we're not really allowed to say the whole Hallel, because it's not appropriate to say the whole Hallel. What are the days that you say the whole Hallel? So it's Ve'elohei, these are them. Shmoinas Yimei Achag, the 8 days of Sukkot, which basically are 7 days of Sukkot and the 1 day of Shemini Atzeres Simchas Torah in Eretz Yisrael in Israel. It comes out to be 8 days of Sukkot. U'shmoinas Yimei Chanukah, and the 8 days of Sukkot, which doesn't matter if you're in Eretz Yisrael or outside, it's always 8 days. Ve'yoim Toiv Arishan Shal Pesach, and the first day of Pesach in Israel, again, only in Israel, the Pesach is 1 day. The Seder, they only do one Seder. They do Pesach the first day, the whole Hallel. After that, there's 6 more days of Pesach in Israel. And those days, you say Hallel, but you don't do the whole Hallel. You skip a few paragraphs in the middle. So what? The first day of Pesach, you say the whole Hallel in Eretz Yisrael. The Yom Tov Shal Atzeres, the Yom Tov of Atzeres, Shavuos, again in Eretz Yisrael is only 1 day, and you say the whole Hallel. Now, so altogether you got 8 plus 8, which is 16, because the 8 days of Sukkot, 8 days of Chanukah, and then you have Pesach, Shavuos, and 1 second, did I skip one?
Oh, that's it. It's 18 in Eretz Yisrael.
16 plus 2 is 18. Thank you. I'm confusing myself. Thank you, Ezra. So yeah, that's right. There's 8 plus 8 plus 1 plus 1. You have 16 days, Sukkot, Chanukah, and then you got Shavuos and Pesach, the 2 days. So that's altogether 18. That's 18 days of a full Hallel in Eretz Yisrael. Uvagoyla, and outside of Eretz Yisrael, Esher v'Yachad, there's 21 days. Why? Because you got to add 1 day to Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot. Add 3. Got 9 days of Sukkot. That's 1 day for the 1 extra day in Sukkot. Chanukah says the same. Chanukah. Shnei Yom Harishon Shal Pesach. Pesach Beis Yomim Shal Tovim Shal Atzeres. And 2 days of Pesach, 2 days of Shavuos. You got an extra 3 days there. So it's either 18 days or 21 days in Golus, outside of Israel. But when you talk about a half Hallel, then you got a lot of, then you have every Rosh Chodesh, you got 12 days right there. Well, actually it's more than 12, because it's every other month is 2 days. So it's really, instead of 12, it's 18, approximately 18. And because some Rosh Chodeshes have 2. The only thing is that Rosh Chodesh Teves is Chanukah. You say on that Rosh Chodesh, you say the whole Hallel, so that you can't give it credit and claim that you say half Hallel on that day. And also Rosh Hashanah, you don't say Hallel. So we got to cancel. You got to remove a few from the half Hallel days, but then you got the last days of Pesach are added to the extra 6 days of Pesach. So you got a whole bunch of days that we only say a half Hallel and not a full Hallel. Now this creates a whole question. Oh, my time is up. Maybe we'll talk about it on Sunday, Metz Hashem, about the different opinions about how to say, about saying a bracha. If it's only a minhag to say Hallel on Rosh Chodesh, are you allowed to really say a bracha for Hallel? Because if it was a obligation to say Hallel, fine. But if it's only a minhag, then seemingly, it's not canceling the Ma'amades. Our Gemara is all about the Ma'amades, says it's not canceling because it's not an obligation. This is what Rava says, not the Lavda Raisa. He's basically implying that, at least the way the commentaries understand, is that it's a minhag. It's a minhag. Can you really say a bracha? But anyway, have a wonderful Shabbos, everyone. Sei gesund. We will.
Shabbos.
Good Shabbos.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Yashikor. Shabbos.